need you to take me to the hospital. I broke my shoulder. And I was like, what do you mean? He was in a crazy amount of pain. They said he had frozen shoulder. They decide he needs to do a full shoulder replacement surgery with a donor bone from a cadaver. And it was everywhere. And we don't know what it is, but we're sending the cultures out to see if we can find out what bacteria it is. But this can go into your bloodstream and you can go septic and die. A few weeks ago, I posted in my community board that I was gonna miss an upload week because of something or an emergency that happened with my husband, Tony. I've had a really hard time talking about this and I've completely avoided talking about it on socials. But after that community board post, I got so many comments from you guys asking about Tony. So I finally feel ready to talk about it. Let's get started. So this is how this whole nightmare began. So Tony is very athletic. He's been athletic our whole entire life. He loves working out. So anyway, he was bench pressing in our home gym. So he comes upstairs and he goes, I need you to take me to the hospital. I broke my shoulder. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, I was bench pressing and I went to rack the weight, but I missed the rack. And he's like, I heard a really loud pop. And at this point, his arm was like dangling. And I instantly freaked out because unlike Tony, I am very anxious. I drop him off at the ER and I just wait for the call. Fast forward many hours later, and it turns out that he did break his shoulder. And initially, they did not think it was that bad. So they popped it back into place, gave him a sling and sent him home. 2 weeks later, they find out that he actually broke a huge part of the socket. In fact, 1/3 of the socket was gone. So 2 weeks later, they booked him in for an emergency surgery. They put 3 or 4 screws in, but the healing from that was brutal. He was in a crazy amount of pain. He was up multiple times a night, and this pain that he experienced turned into a chronic pain where he couldn't move his arm, he couldn't lift his arm above his head. He was doing all this physio and he thought that maybe it was just a lot of scar tissue. They said he had frozen shoulder. It was all this stuff, and he was working so hard, poor guy, to get his mobility back. So then we are at Universal Studios, and he is doing his physio and stretching, and he hears a pop. What was that? It turns out that because 1/3 of his socket had pretty much shattered, when they reattached it, there was not enough there to actually support his shoulder. So what ended up happening when he was doing his physio, he broke it apart. So we went in to see a specialist. They decide he needs to do a full shoulder replacement surgery with a donor bone from a cadaver, and the bone is actually an ankle bone. So he goes in for the shoulder replacement surgery, and this is a big surgery. It's actually quite a big deal. This whole time I had kind of minimized the severity of this, and I think that was part of me just being really naive. And Tony's so stoic and not a complainer that I really didn't know like the extent of the pain he was in or how bad it was or any of that, you know? He's just the most level-headed, resilient human being ever. So several weeks pass, I believe it was 2 weeks. All is good, all is healing, we are good. So I decide to go to a creator conference called VidSummit because I got asked to speak at it. So I go to VidSummit. While I am gone, his incision starts getting red. So he goes to the family doctor, and the family doctor says, it looks like you have a bit of an infection there. Let me put you on some oral antibiotics. So Tony starts taking these oral antibiotics for about 2-3 days. Hindsight is so 2020. If you have a major operation where you are using hardware and there is any sign of redness, that is an emergency. I did not know that back then, neither did he. But he goes home with these antibiotics and he's taking these while I'm at VidSummit. And then I get home from VidSummit. I go to bed and then he wakes me up. He said, Gab, I need your help. So I immediately pop up. I'm like, what's wrong? He goes, I feel wet. I'm like, what? And he goes, my shirt's all wet. What do you mean? So we go to the bathroom and he's completely soaked. And his incision is basically gushing pus. I'm so sorry. I give you full permission to exit out of this video. I know it's a lot. So I start trying to help him and I'm trying to clean this up. And I think, oh, because you were on antibiotics, maybe it's kind of like a pimple that was really inflamed. The antibiotics are working and pushing it out, but we do have to go to the hospital because that doesn't look, we got to go get it checked. And as we're driving, I can tell he's really worried because he's been through so much with this shoulder. And I'm just thinking, babe, don't even stress progress. It is not a big deal. It's all good. I'm sure they're going to put you on a different oral antibiotic and send you home. Like, it's no big deal. So we get over to the hospital and an orthopedic surgeon looks at it. I don't know if you've ever had that situation with a medical professional where you can tell that something is wrong by the way that they're looking at you, and it's very scary. It's kind of like a flight attendant panicking. You know what I mean? You're like, wait, why are you panicking? You see everything. If you're panicking, I need to panic. So at this point, Tony and I are still in complete and utter denial. We're like, it's probably okay. And they said, well, if the infection got down to the bone, that's really bad. We're like, but it didn't. I'm sure it's just superficial. I'm sure it's just a skin infection. And the surgeon's like, maybe. But he just could not give us any reassurance because obviously it was not looking good. So he gets wheeled away into surgery. And I am just sitting there by myself being like, wait a minute, what? 2 hours later, the doctor comes in with a super stern face and he says, it's not good news because the infection was really deep in the wound and we don't know what it is, but we're sending the cultures out to see if we can find out what bacteria it is. They did this washout where they basically like flush it out. They try to scrub it and get rid of everything and they cut away all the tissue that's infected. It was a disaster. Okay, so I go see my husband and he's loopy still from being put under. And he looked at me and he's like, was it just superficial? Because we just talked ourselves into thinking it was no big deal, you know, because that's what you do when you're faced with these things. You just kind of deny that it's a reality. And I was like, no, it's not. So we're sitting there and it's just like bad news, bad news, bad news. It got really deep. It's really serious. It's really this, it's really that. And we don't know what bacteria it is. So we don't know what to give you to cure it. But this can go into your bloodstream and you can go septic and die. So as I'm sure you can imagine, the next 2 days were absolutely terrible because I was so worried that something really bad was going to happen to Tony and that he was going to start going septic, and we had to wait for the cultures to come back, but it takes time to run all those tests. Fast forward 2 days of this hell, and we find out that the bacteria that Tony has is a bacteria called Serratia marcensis. And although no one can know for sure, they think that the bacteria was from the hospital room. Something got missed, something went wrong, something happened where he gets this extremely unlikely bacteria. In fact, they had never seen this. You know, the nurses had never seen it. In 25 years of working there, that's what the nurse said. They have absolutely no idea where it came from. It doesn't even matter at this point, but he got it. So there is an antibiotic that can kill it. And so he immediately got put on that antibiotic through IV and stayed in the hospital getting this IV for an entire week to try to get this under control after the washout surgery before he could come home. So before we leave, the nurses tell us that Tony needs to get a Pic Line put in because he has to be on IV antibiotics for a really long time. He has to be on them for 3 months, 90 days. Can you believe it? So what a Pic Line is, for those of you who are lucky enough to not know, is a tube that goes from your arm here all the way into the base of your heart. The antibiotics get attached to that and it flows through your body. So of course, when he's told that he needs to have this, he's completely devastated because his right shoulder is already completely messed up. And now his left side, which is the only side where he has any mobility and can do things, now has a Pic Line that he has to be super careful with. And from there, he just went to an at-home nursing station every day to get this antibiotic put in once a day. And then they eventually taught me how to do it so that he doesn't have to come in every day. And I've been doing it every day for the last 2 months or so. Now, if you think that's the end of the story, I wish it was, because it gets worse from here. So we get released from the hospital, right? We are not even home for 72 hours when all of a sudden I'm in my office working away. And he comes up to me and he says, Gab, I need your help. And I am like immediately triggered. I'm like, what is wrong? And he goes, my shirt's wet again. So then I go and I look, and now he's not covered in pus. He's covered in blood. In blood. So we get to the ER and it is now pretty much the middle of the night. I don't know if you have been to an ER in the middle of the night, but it is not a nice place. 90% of the people in the ER were tripping out on heavy drugs. There is a man getting completely naked. I'm not kidding. Takes off all his clothes. He's completely naked in front of us. Another guy is dry heaving. One guy passed out on the floor in the bathrooms. He was completely passed out. But all I kept thinking about was, what if someone attacks my husband? Because Tony has a PICC line on one side, he's profusely bleeding on the other. So I'm just like taking him around the ER waiting room, being like, we need to sit here. Nope, this doesn't feel safe. Let's sit here. Nope, this doesn't feel safe. We should move over here. And that was the longest few hours of my life. So it turns out, long story short, that he had a hematoma, which is actually, it's not the most uncommon thing in the world. I obviously didn't know that. So he gets sent home with this vacuum bandage, and I'm completely panicking because I'm like, it's Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving weekend. And I just keep thinking, listen, what happens if the vacuum bandage fills up? What do we do? We had an appointment with the orthopedic surgeon on Tuesday. It is Friday. They're like, it's not gonna fill up by Tuesday, don't worry. And we're like, well, what if it does? Just humor me. Worst case scenario, what if it does? What do we do? It won't. I kid you not, by Saturday afternoon, this vacuum bandage is full of blood. From here to here, he is thick, heavy blood. So I'm calling all of my nurse friends to like, please help me, because changing these vacuum bandages is a very specialized thing. Not everyone can do it. I called our local hospital for wound care. Wound care is closed for Thanksgiving. What the heck are we supposed to do then? What are we supposed to do? Well, you have to go to the ER. Well, what is the point of even going to the ER if wound care is closed anyway? Every single part of this experience was a disaster. So if you're wondering how things are looking now, things are finally a little bit more on the stable side. His blood results have been kind of going up and down with the infection markers. Like 1 week it's better, 1 week it's worse, 1 week it's better, 1 week it's worse. For the first time ever today, they came back normal. The thing that really scares me with all of this is that bacteria can create a biofilm around hardware. And when he's on IV antibiotics, it kind of keeps the bacteria muted. But the second that you get off the IV antibiotics, it can all come back. So this whole entire nightmare can start again. I don't even want to think about that, but it's a real possibility that that will happen. If the bacteria does come back, the next step would be to get him in for surgery, take everything out, put in an antibiotic-filled spacer, wait again several months doing antibiotic treatments to kill everything, and then do a full shoulder replacement surgery again, like this whole thing over again. If you guys knew Tony, and he's been in a few videos, and I know how much you guys already love him from just a couple of videos he's been in, but he is the greatest person ever. Everyone adores him. He is the most popular person I know. It's impossible to not just completely love him because he is so kind and caring and sweet, and he's so thoughtful, and he's just so strong and resilient and not whiny about anything. It's just so unfair, and I hate that this happened, and I just hope that it's gonna be okay in the end. You have no idea how much it means to me when I get comments and emails and messages asking how Tony's doing. I truly am so thankful. I really hope that you have the best holiday season ever. Merry Christmas.